My baby girl comes out and she looked like an alien. She was purple and her head was misshapen and she had a bunch of gunk on her, and all babies kind of come out ugly. But at the same time, they're the most beautiful thing to you. I am responsible for this little girl for the rest of my life, for the rest of forever. And it starts at that point. All the anxiety and all the responsibility, and realizing this is no longer about you. This is no longer about your wife. This is about you guys working together to try to keep this little creature alive. Your job as a partner during the pregnancy, you have to be a safe place. You have to make sure that you are standing up for your partner, your girlfriend, your wife. You have to make sure that you're speaking up for them. Hey, what do you need? Is there anything else I can help with? Sometimes it's as easy as, hey, can you just go get me a glass of water? Other times it's, hey, I'm in a lot of pain. I need you to go hunt down a nurse right now because I don't know what's going on and I need this pain to go away. Sometimes it's literally, shut the hell up. I don't want you to say anything for the next 30 minutes.
Medicine,
law, friendship. This is Dr. Long and Lawyer Nik. You're listening to the Medico-Legal Brief.
one doctor, one lawyer, and a whole lot of gray area.
Welcome back to another episode of Medico-Legal Brief with Dr. Long and Lawyer Nik. I wanted to follow back up on this topic that honestly has been our best episode previously, which is our parenthood conversation. We were talking about how to build a family as professionals, as a doctor and a lawyer, and it did really well. So I wanted to follow back up on that topic and see how our new father is doing. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that anyone that has not already, please make sure you follow, comment, like our content. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. Find us where we're at, and we'd love to interact with you guys. But yeah, Nik, you are now a new father. You've got a baby girl who's a couple months old now.
Yep, she will be 4 months old in 2 weeks.
Can you believe you kept a human being alive for that long?
It's a surreal experience. I know there are many people on this planet that have done this song and dance multiple times, but it's been a very unique experience. And I have a lot of comments on it, and we've talked in depth about parenthood. So I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited to go through it. Even right now, I can hear her screaming somewhere in the house, and there's a little bit of comfort because I know that she's with her mom and she's safe, but there's also a little bit of anxiety as a father. Should I be back there? Should I be helping? Should I be trying to assist? We'll talk all about that during this podcast.
Good. Well, I'm glad you clarified that you just didn't leave her hanging out by herself.
I mean, sometimes I wish I could, but that's a no-no. I can't do that. So
I want to start the story around what was it like in terms of taking off work to be with your wife through the labor, even maybe prior to the labor. I know your situation's a little different, but our audience is really curious how a professional, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, any other professional that has a full-time job, how do you go about taking time off so that you're there for your family and your partner?
let's take this story back a little over a year ago when I resigned from the aerospace and defense company. One of the reasons I resigned at the time is because we were not pregnant. My wife and I had a conversation of, if we want to really go out and be entrepreneurs and really do it, let's do it before we have a kiddo. Because once we have a kiddo, the responsibility and the security and insurance and a paycheck every week will be something that will hold us to, they call it the golden handcuffs. It's going to hold me to my job, hold you to what you're doing. So if we're going to try, let's try now. Shortly thereafter, we got pregnant. We expected it to take a lot longer, and we're just blessed that it happened so quickly. But there was the oh shit moment of, okay, now I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doubling down. I need to make this work. So throughout the entire pregnancy, I was there because I work from home. I'm working remote because it's my own business. I get to leave whenever I want. I get to come back whenever I want. And I was able to support every aspect of her pregnancy, which a lot of men and a lot of partners don't get to do, especially when you throw a career in there. I was very fortunate that I got to go to every single doctor's appointment. I got to be present post birth and go through the, I guess, what we would call paternity leave, my own self-assessed paternity leave. It was very unique. I did have to have this conversation back and forth with myself, though, because after our daughter was born, I knew that traditionally speaking in the workplace, people will get, at least fathers, will get 6 to 8 weeks of paternity, depending on where you're working at. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. But at my previous job, you were given about 6 weeks. I knew in the back of my mind, all right, well, for at least 6 weeks, it's going to be a challenge. It's so much of a challenge to be a father at I need to be ready to not work for about 6 weeks because that's what peers and colleagues and friends had actually ended up taking off. I try to be more aware of that, but in the back of my head, I also knew that I eat what I kill. And so anytime that I wasn't working just pushed me further and further back on my entrepreneurial path.
I'm actually surprised to hear that that is what you think is the average for paternity leave, because from a health standpoint, from a doctor standpoint, we actually usually do not get any paternity leave at all. Any amount of leave that you take, it's going to be the amount that you have kept as PTO that you haven't used. So any vacation time that you haven't used already. Anything on top of that would be an FMLA situation where you leave, but your job will still be there. Paternity leave is actually hard to find, especially in the medical field. Our audience, it would be important to know that when you're looking for jobs, especially if you're a medical student or a resident searching for that next job, is asking for those opportunities and whether or not your company or your employer is going to allow that. Most of the time, if you do get paternity leave, it's usually 1 or 2 weeks. Maternity leave is usually a little bit more. It's usually about 4 weeks, but still not anywhere near enough, in my opinion, for families to bond and grow appropriately. It's something that us in the U.S. could probably work better on. But I'm glad that in your situation you were able to do all of that for your family. So then paternity leave, you knew that that was going to be a struggle. How did you find? How did you go about funding your health insurance? Like, did you just buy it off the market? Did you maintain Cobra from your prior job? Like, what? How did you maintain that now that you have this unexpected pregnancy?
For anybody who's tried to go through Cobra, Cobra is freaking expensive. It is the most expensive thing. I looked at the Cobra options and there was no possible way. Then I had to go through Marketplace. And that was also a very interesting task because trying to get the appropriate health insurance, well, I need to be able to predict my income. As an entrepreneur, it's very, very hard to predict your income. So you'll get some tax benefits, you'll get some subsidies through Marketplace depending on where you fall in your salary range. And I had to try to take the best assessment, the best estimate of where I thought I was going to be. And there was a note there that obviously I might have to pay some stuff back depending on how much money I actually made at the end of the year. Currently, we're in tax season and I can't wait to see what that looks like. I made sure to go to the Marketplace. I was able to get very, very cheap health insurance based on my estimates. But like I said, I may have to go back and make some additional payments depending on what that looks like from a tax perspective.
Oh, so how does that look? I've obviously never bought anything off the marketplace for health insurance, but are you looking at family plans and just making sure that they are covering the types of doctors that you're looking for? Or how do you go about searching that? I know it gets really detailed and confusing sometimes, but give us just a broad overview of how that went.
I first used Marketplace back when Obamacare was a big thing, the Affordable Care Act. Because when I was a lawyer, our firm was so small that we didn't have access to health insurance. I had to go get insurance through the Marketplace. That was my first experience. I just thought, okay, I'm returning to it. Hopefully, it's better than what it was. And for the most part, my experience was the same. There was a little bit more information, a little more data out there to help me with my selections. But ultimately, you fill out a profile and you claim who you're getting coverage for. At the time, I just had to make sure I was getting coverage for my wife. And one of the most important things I looked for was how the health insurance I selected would impact her getting pregnant because we knew that we were going to start trying. Essentially, what'll end up happening is you put in all your information, you put in your salary or your projected salary, and the Marketplace will give you a bunch of different options. You can filter by the different health insurances, whether it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, whether it's Cigna, whether it's some of these smaller health insurances. You can filter by price. If you want to pay a high premium and a low deductible or vice versa, you could focus on what you're getting access to. Is it going to be an HMO? Is it going to be a PPO? I thought that it was very unique in the searching and the filtering capabilities. That was very beneficial. And one thing that helped was I was able to search out our current healthcare providers, see what insurances they were accepting, and almost back into what my health insurance should be. Once we figured out what the doctors were all falling under, I was able to make the best decision for us. It ended up working out really well.
It sounds like you did a lot of research to find the insurance.
Mhm.
Was there a lot of research done in terms of becoming a father then, preparing for when baby arrived? Did you read a lot of books, self-help
Yes.
books? What did you do?
Yes, there's a book right here that I read. I finished it, and it was one of the best books I could have read, but The Expectant Father. This was kinda like my Bible throughout. I really resonated with that book, and this isn't a plug for the book, but if anybody likes to read and you're a expecting father, I think it's a good one because it literally takes you through month by month what you should be going through, what the baby as the baby is growing is going through, what your wife or your partner is going through, what the pregnancy is all about. That really helped me um, because I didn't have to sit down and try to plow through it. At the beginning of every month, I would open up that chapter and I'd read the 15 to 20 pages of what to expect, and that was it. And then I got to see those things actually happen. I got to see firsthand what my wife was going through, already knowing that I've read about it in the book. And there were certain things in which my wife would come up and say, "Well, I think this is odd." And I'd say, "Oh, I just read that in my book. Let me show it to you." And vice versa. She was reading some of her books and she would bring things to me. And now that I am a father, that author wrote a second book. And so I've started reading that book and helping me raise my child.
Interesting. So do you feel like everything has gone as planned?
Hell no. No, not at all. Not at all. And we've talked about this a lot. My daughter being 4 months old, she is a little, I don't know, a little spark plug. She is a very happy baby, but she has her moments. The thing that is hard for us as parents is we have other friends and colleagues and family that are going through similar things. With you, you already have 2 kiddos. You're able to look back retrospectively and say, "Hey, at this point in that age, this is what they're going through." Then we have my brother and sister-in-law who they had their daughter a month after ours, literally to the day, a month to the day, and they have already had one child who is about 18 months old, one son. So going through those similar processes and getting the feedback is also really important, but everybody's parenting journey is different. When you throw in TikTok and Instagram and all the books and all the research, there's so much information out there, and every bit of information says, you should do this or else. No, you should not do that. You should do this or else. And so it gets a little convoluted. It provides some unnecessary anxiety as far as parenting goes. You just try to do your best. You literally just try to do your best.
Do you feel like anything in your life, whether that was your career choice, your education, gave you a leg up to becoming a parent? Like, I made it through law school. I have passed the bar exam. Like, parenthood is going to be easy.
No, because I've had district judges yell at me, and nothing breaks me down more than my daughter yelling at me. I look at her, I'm like, I am an adult. Why are you yelling at me? This isn't fair. Let me sleep, please. But overall, all jokes aside, the one thing that really, really helped, and some people may laugh at this, but having an animal, like I had a dog, and the dog we had to put down about a month before our daughter was born. He had cancer, and so it was actually about a month after I left my job, we had to amputate one of his legs because he had cancer in that leg, and then it ended up spreading, and so he was a tripod for about 8 months, and then we ultimately had to put him down because there was no way that we were gonna be able to have a newborn, have him still going through his cancer. It was just gonna be unfair. He was a 100-pound Rottweiler. He taught us a lot of lessons. He was able to teach me and my wife that in an emergency situation, how do we communicate? When things get really hard or we have to give our dog medication at 4 o'clock in the morning, how are we going to partner up? How are we going to work at that? With him being a tripod, he needed to be carried everywhere. Literally, we had to basically put almost like a satchel thing on him and carry him. We had to carry him into the car. We had to make sure he got fed. He couldn't stand up because if he stood up, he risked hurting the other leg. All these little things and all these dynamics that came with our Rottweiler kind of helped lay a foundation with our newborn. He helped teach us a lot of lessons and how to partner, how to communicate, and how to survive when things were really, really bad.
That's such a beautiful way to remember the passing of your dog and how he helped you grow your family and prepare you. I think that's awesome. But you're right. There are not too many things that really give us an edge up. Even as a doctor, having kids, I've said this story before, but sitting in the hospital room with my son right there for the first time ever, every 15 minutes, I was still checking in on him to make sure he was breathing, even though I know we were in a safe environment and that he was alive and we had just fed him and he's just resting and sleeping. But those sort of parental anxieties come on and they come on suddenly. whether you're blood related or not related. But there is this human being now that is solely relying on you to survive. It's amazing. It's beautiful, but so stressful. So, what was the situation like in the hospital room and the delivery room? Were you helpful or were you one that passed out?
Man, I had you in the back of my head along with a bunch of other friends saying, "Hey, don't pass out. Don't pass out. This happens." Overall, I thought the hospital was wonderful. I thought the staff was wonderful. We ended up getting induced. We've talked about this on a previous podcast. Showed up and it was like you were checking in a hotel. But overall, I was trying to be as helpful as possible as my wife is sitting there going through it. I tried to do anything that the nurses had recommended. We had attended classes, so I was familiar with what was going on, but there were so many things that classes don't prepare you for. And then when it was go time, it was very hard because I had no control over the situation, none whatsoever. I was just there as a support person. And as far as supporting, I was doing the best I could, trying to keep my wife breathing, trying to say sweet nothings into her ear, telling her she's doing a good job. I tried to crack a few jokes. Those didn't go over well. But there was one point where I did look around the room and there were 6 or 7 medical staff in there, a lot of blood. And I don't know what, I just started thinking about y'all making fun of me for like, hey, don't pass out. Cause I've never passed out in my life. And I start feeling a little woozy. And in between her breathing cycle, I actually walked away to go get water. And I hear her say, "Where's my husband at? Where's my husband? Where'd you go? Where'd you go?" And so I had to run back over there. The thought of passing out started making me feel like I needed to pass out, which was a vicious circle. But that was the only time. Other than that, it went off without a hitch. A few things that came up that the staff was able to handle. And the next thing you know, my baby girl comes out and she looked like an alien. She was purple and her head was misshapen and she had a bunch of gunk on her. And obviously, they prepare you for that in the classes. And there's just all babies kind of come out ugly. But at the same time, they're the most beautiful thing to you. You're like, oh my gosh, that baby is my child. I am responsible for this little girl for the rest of my life, for the rest of forever. And it starts at that point, all the anxiety and all the responsibility and realizing this is no longer about you. This is no longer about your wife. This is about you guys working together to try to keep this little creature alive.
Were your hands shaking when you cut the umbilical cord?
Honestly, it went by so fast. I just looking at my daughter, looking at my wife, during the moment, everybody's moving around. There's a lot happening. And all of a sudden, I was like, are you going to cut the umbilical cord? And I'm like, it was almost autopilot. So I grab it. And then I have another nurse saying, "Do you want a picture of you cutting?" And I'm like, no, like my wife is just sitting here spread eagle. Everything's going on. I don't need to document this moment. And so I'm just looking at it and she tells me where to cut and I cut it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it was. And then went back to it. But it was interesting after because I am now taking in the room. I'm taking in the scenery. My baby is resting on my wife's chest, but obviously they have to deliver the placenta. So there's this whole other ordeal going on. And I'm seeing everybody work. And I started noticing things. The nurses are calling out different things. And then there's a nurse for the baby. There's a nurse for my wife. And then the doctor is sitting there and she's got to deliver the placenta. So there's more blood and she's in there. And then she's sewing. And then she's counting rags to make sure that the rags and tools aren't left somewhere where they should be. So it was another experience that if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't see this flawless process of everybody having their own role and responsibility to get the room cleaned up, make sure everybody's safe and healthy, and then kind of get us turned over and out into the nursery.
I'm actually very, very impressed at how observant you are because I would say most fathers, especially, get lost in the moment. They truly do. They get lost in this thing coming out of their wives' privates, and then all of a sudden they're a father and they're in shock most of the time. For you to actually recognize the teamwork that it takes to deliver a baby, but also all the different aspects of the room, that's really impressive. That lens from probably law school and your lawyer background and all the little details that you have to keep in mind and always are cognizant of. Oh, I actually have another question that I want you to pull back even more. Give us some of your top advice for fathers specifically when you're in that room. What do you think your wife needed the most? And what is it? Because it's probably the same sort of advice that I would give across the board, but sometimes our audience just needs to hear it again. It's probably very simple. It's simpler than they think.
I think to me being more observant, I kind of understood that the job wasn't done yet. There were still things that needed to happen. For instance, my wife's placenta was kind of separated. So there was the thing throughout the pregnancy of like, okay, make sure that both parts of this placenta are delivered. And then, of course, there's the sewing up and then what my daughter's going through and her being transported over here and over there. We also did blood banking and saving the cord for stem cells later on in life. That was another thing. Are you guys actually doing the things you need so we could collect those samples so then I could send them off? I was still in like business mode at that point. I had seen my daughter, I had shed a tear, I had enjoyed the moment. She was safe, my wife was safe. Now make sure that everybody was in place doing their job. And then I was able to settle down later when I got into the room. Your job as a partner during the pregnancy, you have to be like a safe place. You have to make sure that you are standing up for your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, what have you. You have to make sure that you're speaking up for them. You have to make sure that you're communicating, you're asking, hey, what do you need? Is there anything else I can help with? Sometimes it's as easy as, can you just go get me a glass of water? Other times it's, I'm in a lot of pain. I need you to go hunt down a nurse right now because I don't know what's going on and I need this pain to go away. Sometimes it's literally, shut the hell up. I don't want you to say anything for the next 30 minutes. And I got told that once or twice where I was trying to be a little bit funny or I was trying to have a conversation with the nurse just to pass the time. And I was told to be quiet because that's what my wife needed in that moment. And so I just took orders. For most men, it's hard to take orders when a lot of men are control freaks. We like to be alphas and we like to control the situation. And I had to take a step back. And I knew going in that would be my role to play. Another thing that was really, really important was during the actual pushing, during the actual birth, my wife really needed me to be a calm voice. The nurses and doctors are speaking to each other. There's things that are of concern, things that are not of concern. I need to be able to listen and relay and summarize as simply as possible what was going on and ask appropriate questions. If the doctor said, we need to go to a different angle, this isn't working, I need to be able to tell my wife, we're probably going to have to switch sides right now. It's probably going to be a little painful from what they're saying. Tell me when you're ready. And then I would tell the staff, hey, she's ready to go. Can we do it right now? And vice versa. There was a lot of that and just trying to be a rock. Like it wasn't about me. It was about her and every woman out there that gives birth. It's an impressive feat. And I know that every pregnancy is different, what she went through and what she had to do in those moments. I could never. Sometimes you don't appreciate that enough.
Absolutely. And honestly, the audience is probably going to think that we scripted all this, but you hit the nail on the head from a doctor standpoint and going into these rooms, all these different patients that I've met. That's exactly all that husbands need to do or partners need to do in those moments. Be that shoulder for them, advocate for them, because you are the one person that your wife or your girlfriend or your partner is telling all these little secrets, all these little issues, these minor things that they may feel are minor, but you see the full picture and you have to let the doctor know that. Otherwise, we don't know. Because if she's not letting us know, we're never going to know that we need to fix something. So you step into that space and say, hey, this pillow probably needs a second one, or maybe we need another ice pack. Those are sometimes things that the patient gets worried about bothering the staff for. That's literally what we're here for. For our audience, especially our fathers or soon to be fathers, those are things that you can do for your wife. Obviously, advocate for your partner in a nice and friendly way. Don't be demanding. Don't be an asshole. Don't have an ego about it. We're all there to help the same person. Ask for it nicely and it will get done. The other thing is being just not getting in the way too. Don't be the one to pass out. Don't be the one to be on your phone while everyone else is working. Just be cognizant of where you're at and just be in the present moment of the birth of your child. Like those are the main things. You hit it right on the head there. And that's exactly what I see across the board. No matter where you come from, what culture, what family dynamics you have, like those are the main things that I see that makes the delivery itself run more smoothly.
I don't know how many times I had to ask, where do you guys want me to stand? Y'all need me over here? Or do y'all need me over here? Should I go stand on the other side?
Did you have hand duty or leg duty? That's usually one or the other.
I had both. As she was going through her contractions and they were moving her around, there were moments where I had to hold up a leg that she could press up against. Then there were moments where she was basically in the stirrups on all fours and I just had to move the hair out of her face, and then just her being on her back and wanting something to grab onto and taking my hand. And I actually brought the stress ball, and there were times she's like, I don't want your hand, just give me the stress. So I had to go fetch that. Just staying out of the way was really important, and just taking it all in and making sure that, again, I'm being respectful. This is a very important part of life and the process. The last thing I wanted to do was get so upset at anything that I kind of stained the experience by fighting with the nurse or fighting with the doctor. All the communication, when I kept it respectful, they kept it really respectful. Once or twice, I thought maybe the communication towards me was a little bit more direct where I didn't expect it, where I thought, hey, give me the feedback if I'm not doing something right instead of just take it away from me, tell me what I'm doing wrong. But other than that, I thought there was a good check and adjust to it. The one thing that was very surprising, though, and we've talked about this in another podcast of when you're dealing with medical staff and sometimes you're just exposed and the staff get to see all your goodies. Literally, my wife is just airing it out in the entire room. There are nurses and doctors and an anesthesiologist and everybody coming in and out, and her whole stuff is just for the world to see. And the thing is, that is a process of motherhood. Now, looking back at it, she just accepted it. There was no question about it. There was no modesty. This is the process that all women giving birth are going to go through. And so you just have to dive in. And then it makes sense why when you get out and you are a mother, I've met a lot of mothers where it's like, I don't care about that. My modesty went out the window years ago. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about a little spit up on me because when I was going through pregnancy, I was peeing on myself or farting all over the place or what have you, bleeding all over. There's so much more to it that again, I got to give props to women going through pregnancy, because when you're going through that, I could never. If you told me to lay up and put my legs in stirrups with my goodies hanging out, that I would be scarred for life.
We can always tell first time parents versus having multiple kids. And you're right. The ones that are shy are usually the newer ones. Never had a kid, but once you've had a kid, they don't care anymore. And they make honestly the greatest teaching patients for our future doctors, for our future nurses, because they allow our trainees to experience it hands on. They allow them to touch the patient, get to do the exam, get to do those things. And so we're very thankful for those mothers. It's not an easy process, but it's quite a feat that many of them go through. So now baby's out and baby is coming home. What are the struggles? What are the things that you're dealing with when you get home? I heard some of it and I helped troubleshoot some of it as well. But let the audience know like what to expect from the father perspective on how you're going to help your wife, especially if your wife is going to be purely breastfeeding. And what do you recommend? What is your advice?
There's two different paths, two different things that occur when you come home. One, you have this newborn baby that obviously you need to find a way to keep alive. It's very basic, and I try to simplify everything to its basic understanding. The baby needs to be able to eat, the baby needs to be clean, and the baby needs to sleep. Outside of that, you're not trying to entertain the baby. You're not trying to take the baby to the movies. You're not trying to schedule a trip to London. You're just trying to do these basic things for your child. But the other thing that gets missed is my wife during her postpartum was going through it. She had just gone through a major life event. Her body wasn't working the same way. When we're looking at the way her body has changed and what she's going through as far as recovery, her stomach is no longer as big, but we need to make sure that the organs and everything are back in their place. The way she uses the bathroom is now different. She's more sensitive down there. If you're choosing to breastfeed, she's responsible for breastfeeding and she's responsible for pumping. And then there's the rush of hormones and emotions that are either there or no longer there. So she went through a lot. And I think that it's trying to find a balance as a father, as a good partner. And it's not just fathers. I mean, we've talked about this. There are many partners out there. If you're the one supporting from that partner view, you have to make sure that you recognize what your partner has gone through. Now, obviously, from a father perspective, it's a little bit different. And I want to ask you that because if you've listened to our previous podcast, you know that you have one child from surrogacy and one child from adoption, but some of the dynamics are very similar because you still have to keep a baby alive. You're not necessarily worried about the partner and what's going on down there because they haven't gone through pregnancy. But as far as my wife goes, I just had to make sure I was taking care of her as well. She couldn't move as fast. She needed ice packs. She needed food made for her. I needed to make sure that she was getting enough sleep so then she could do what she needed to do for the baby. And it was very eye-opening. I understand why paternity leave is important. And to your point, I'm very surprised that some people don't get it. I thought it was a standard across the nation at this point in time, just because of the companies and corporations I've seen that encourage it. It's hard to imagine those single mothers out there doing it by themselves. That was one thing that really stood out because I know my wife needed me and I need my wife just to survive with this little child, with this little angel. But within the first 2 weeks, that was a really big dynamic of how can I help make her life easier? And the big thing that revolved around that was the feeding schedule. Feeding your baby every 2 to 3 hours. Your baby's born and then they lose their birth weight, and so the first goal is to get them back up to their birth weights. And once they get back up to their birth weight, we're good to go. We can start making some changes. But getting them back there is really important. And we had some struggles as far as how to get enough sleep. My wife wasn't necessarily producing a lot of milk at the time. Feedback was, "Hey, don't worry, it'll come in." And so I actually reached out to you and you gave some pretty good advice. Do you remember what that advice was that you gave us?
I don't, but I can just speak broadly. It's a good place to say that, again, anything that I say is not medical advice. It's just a conversation about the situation. Most pregnancies, the birth of a kid, we want the newborn to try to get as much breast milk as possible. Natural, it comes with antibodies, it comes with a lot of good things, but it's not absolutely necessary. Both my kids were fed with formula. They have grown up just fine. They're healthy. If there's a place that you need to supplement formula, that's the one thing I want to make sure parents and mothers understand. It doesn't mean you're a bad mother. It just means your body wasn't ready. Continue to pump, continue to stimulate the nipples, continue to try to produce that milk as much as you can. It can take days for the milk to let down, and that means when you're actually producing. And that's why those first couple of days while you're in the hospital, it's expected that baby will lose 3 to 6% of their birth weight. And then you have about 2 weeks to gain that birth weight back. However, I would say 80 to 90% of babies go beyond that birth weight by the 2 week mark. But that's kind of that goal. And so you've already hit all that. If I remember correctly, we talked about trading off the sleeping schedule and the feeding schedule, and that because obviously your wife has been carrying for a full 9 months, probably not sleeping that well, and now she also has the burden to try to breastfeed, that you guys try to pump as much as you can and then have you do the night shift so that she can get some rest.
That's exactly what you said. My wife was struggling with pumping because as you had mentioned, like her milk was still trying to come in. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we actually bought milk from the hospital. They had a system there where they were giving us milk to supplement the breast milk that had been donated from others. And so we were able to bring a bunch of those bottles home and we were able to kind of mix that in with the breastfeeding and what my wife was producing as a way to supplement our baby girl's food. Now, what we were struggling with was this overnight sleeping where every 3 hours my wife had to get up, try to breastfeed. It wasn't working. And so then we had to throw a bottle in there. You look at the books and you look at TikTok, you look at Instagram and you talk to all these other moms and everybody has an opinion. You should be waking up every 3 hours. So do it this way. And so we try to do it that way and it didn't work. And you actually said, and this saved us, it saved us in the first month. You said, "Hey, look, just have her pump, do what she can, and then you feed throughout the night. Let her sleep. And if you can let her sleep, get some good sleep that she hasn't had in the last 9 months, things will start slowly coming together." And I swear it wasn't 2 days later that she was showing me what she had pumped and said, "Hey, look at what I'm producing now." And it was because she was getting good sleep. So as a man, what I did, being a paranoid new father, is I just stayed up all night with my daughter. She had the bassinet and we made the living room area a very calming place. We turned off all the lights at night. We put her breastfeeding chair in the living room. We put the bassinet next to it. I would put my wife to bed. I tuck her in and do all the cutesy stuff. We turn off all the lights so she could go pitch black without any baby sounds. Baby sounds are also something that's a trigger. There is something innately in women that when they hear the baby sound, they know to go. And I, as a man, don't necessarily always hear it. So that was the point of me staying up all night, which I was happy to do. I was on my own quote unquote paternity leave. So what did I do? I grabbed my Nintendo Switch or I grabbed a book or I binge watched some TV shows and I just stayed up all night. And every 3 hours, I fed my baby. And then what would end up happening is at 7 or 8 o'clock after a full night's rest from my wife, I would then go to sleep and I would sleep till 12 o'clock or 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And she was able to stay up all day and focus on her. And she was able to get back onto a healthier schedule. And to some extent, we still have a similar schedule at times when we need it. And it helped a lot. She was producing milk. She was a lot happier. She was more well rested. It let her postpartum recovery happen a lot quicker because she was able to take care of herself and just let her body go into recovery mode. The advice you had was spot on. I don't know if it's going to work for everybody, but it worked for us.
New parents struggle with that because both parents want to be involved for every aspect of the baby's waking moment. And it can be a struggle. And you just have to realize that you have to take shifts. That's the only way that you guys are going to survive, especially if you have multiple kids. You have to take shifts, and that's how you're going to be able to meet the needs of not only the child, but each parent too. But my mindset is that if we can get the second most important person, obviously baby is most important at this point in time, but second most important is going to be mom, because mom's going to be the one producing milk. If we can get her into the best physical and mental state possible, well rested, feeling good about herself, body's recovering, then everything else will start clicking, whether that's milk coming in better, coming in more full, whether she's more happy, she's eating healthier, her connection with her newborn is better. Like those are all things that just follow suit. And so I try to advise and tell my patients that, especially when they're new parents, as much as I can. They always don't listen for the first week or two. They always still try to go and do everything together all the time. But then they quickly learn that, hey, maybe Dr. Wynn has some good advice. We always end up in this similar place. And again, I just want to reiterate, yes, it's important to have breast milk, but it's not the end all be all. It's okay to sacrifice a little bit. The baby is going to be okay. That's the one thing that a lot of moms find hard giving up, is that they feel like an inadequate mother when they're not fully breastfeeding all the time 24/7.
And I know that I'm in a very convenient situation right now. I do understand there are a lot of partners out there that are going through this, and the father is not able to take time off, or he's not able to stay up all night. I'm speaking from a point of what our own process was, what worked for us. There's going to be people that listen to this like easier said than done. Easier said than done. There's no way in hell. There might be some instances in which the moms listening will say, I don't trust my husband to do that overnight. I've read things online where some moms have trouble giving up control over to the husband or the boyfriend or the partner just by the very nature of that innate dynamic between them and their newborn. It's hard to just give up the baby and say, all right, partner, here you go. But my wife and I had built up that trust to where she knew that our baby girl was going to be safe with me no matter what. I was going to do exactly what I needed to do, and if I had any problems, I could go ask her, and she'd be open and willing to discuss. Some moms need to find trust in their partners, but I also think that some partners need to step up and say, "Hey, I'm here to help you. You can trust me. Let's work through it. If if you have something of concern with me taking the baby all night, let's talk it out, because you have to be able to find that happy middle ground." And we found it, and that was clutch. It was the best thing ever. The best thing ever
Yeah.
for our our demeanor, for our stress level. It helped a ton. And in those first couple weeks, our kiddo wasn't doing anything. You swallow her up and she sleeps, and then she poops, and then you change her, and then you feed her, and then like she's very peaceful. It's a very peaceful time if you can just get over the fact that your sleep schedule is a little off.
Yep. And so just my personal experience too, obviously gay couple, two fathers. We actually had my husband stay home, and I did not have the luxury of paternity leave like I had mentioned earlier. And so I had already saved up my PTO. I ended up having 2 or 3 weeks saved up, but we didn't want to take it all at once. I didn't want to be double dipping both of us at home, because we felt like it was a waste of time, but also a waste of paycheck, because I was going to be the only income earner. So we decided that my husband was going to stay home for that full year. And basically, what I did is I would take the night shift. He would be home all day while I was at work, and he would take care of the baby. And then when I got home from work, I would then take the night shift and take care of baby. It only worked out for us because of my history of working a lot during medical school, during residency, 24-hour shifts, 48-hour shifts. Those were very common. I was already used to that lifestyle and that sleep schedule. And so what I did is I saved those weeks, and I interdispersed them. Maybe every third day, every fourth day, I would take a day off as a recovery day. And that worked well for us for those first couple of months. And so again, as a doctor, as a professional, you have to struggle finding those situations, especially if you don't have that paternity leave. But it's possible. We ended up having our second, doing something very similar. We also didn't have family around. He took this time only 6 months off, and we did this as a very similar thing. As I worked during the day, came home, took the night shift with babies, and then I would take a day off in 3 or 4 days, or maybe just the weekend. Maybe did a whole full week where I wasn't sleeping that well, and then just slept more on the weekend. But it worked out. Both kids are healthy. We survived it as a couple, and I agree. It's all about trust, and it says a lot if you can't trust the person that you either married or are having a kid with. If you can't trust them with your kid, why are you with them? That's scary. It's just something to introspect and look back at if you are concerned about that.
And
Is
that
there any other? Nope, go ahead.
that's another struggle point I see because again, we're talking from very convenient situations. There are women out there that their partner is not the best. Their partner may have left or their partner isn't the most trustworthy. The phrase "it takes a village" really resonates. You have to be willing to check and adjust. You have to be willing to get a little creative. You have to be willing to ask for help when it's needed. So that's very important when you're trying to raise a child. And it's very
Mhm.
eye-opening as our baby continues to every month that goes by, she continues to get bigger and get louder and need more things. Just finding the right situation that works for you and just understanding it's going to be a struggle. I've only been in it for 4 months. It is a struggle. It is hell some days. Some days are miserable. Some days are great. You'll get through it. You just got to keep pressing on, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good episode, such a good topic. I'm curious to see whether or not our audience takes to it as they did the first episode. And if it does, we should do more of this. I don't think that there's enough content out there about professionals and parenthood, but specifically male professionals and parenthood and how we have to handle it, deal with it from a mental standpoint, psychological standpoint, and a physical standpoint. It's usually all about the mothers and the wives and the women, but I'm hoping that maybe this could be a little niche that we could pull into. But this will be the end of our episode here on the Medical Legal Brief. This wasn't too much of the actual medical legal component, but at least some medical. But you've joined here, Dr. Long and Lawyer Nik. Make sure you subscribe, follow. Our episodes come out every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central Time. Make sure you find us and be on the lookout for our next episode. Thanks for joining.
Yes, we're doctors. Yes, we're lawyers. No, this podcast is not medical or legal advice. Do not take anything we say as a reason to perform your own heart surgery, represent yourself in court, or diagnose your neighbor's rash. This is for entertainment only. Think of it like hanging out with your smartest, wittiest friends, not a substitute for an actual appointment. If you act on anything we say without talking to your own professional, that's on you. Seriously, don't do that.